I'm sorry.
All right, now we're recording. So. At noon, to take you out of the trailer. Tells everybody what to do. Oh, you want to get out of that, or it's going to give them major feedback, and they're all going to cry. Hi, I see that Erin, Katie, and Jen and Kristen have joined us already. I'm going to keep this up over the next few minutes. Feel free to ask any questions about any technical problems that you're having along the way, and we'll be starting promptly at 4:30. I did deploy an assignment through the Google Classroom. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch the trailer, please remember you need to go to that top right-hand corner, click on those 9 squares, and go to Q&A to turn question and answer on, and then type your name in so that we know who's with us and everybody else who's in front of you with the training. All right, so I'll be watching the questions. I'm going to turn my microphone off and have you guys see what everybody else is seeing on the screen right now, and feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you very much. See you guys in 10 minutes. We're starting.
One thing I'd like to note is that while Google Classroom, we are going to continue to use Google Classroom.
I usually chase them down those questions, so I'll be right back.
In class. Okay. So if you would prefer to do things on paper, we have paper copies that you'll be able to use during the class today. However, if you want to get PDPs, if you intend to get PDPs for this course, you must complete everything through the Google Classroom. Does that make sense? I know there were some technical difficulties and some challenges with using the Google Classroom last time during the actual course, so we're not requiring you to use it tonight, but in order to submit all of the work, you are required to use the Google Classroom. Yes.
So I was overwhelmed by all the emails, and I just honestly didn't know what was expected. I honestly was so busy, I don't have time to sit and go through each individual email. And I was just wondering if maybe you could just give one sheet with what's due, when it's due, and where to find it.
So if you go into the Google Classroom and you click on assignments, it's got a nice list of every assignment that's
I
due.
don't know how to get in the Google Classroom.
So everything. So I can show you how to do that in another time.
I'm thinking maybe I'm in it now, but I don't know.
So if you're well, let's not troubleshoot Google Classroom problems right now, because again, we have a lot of content to get to. But if you are having trouble specifically with Google Classroom, reach out to one of the presenters and we'll help you problem solve that. Okay?
So for those of you who are going to be doing it on paper today, you don't have to retype it all up. Just take a picture of it with your phone and upload that. You don't need to do duplicate work if you're doing it on paper.
All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyla McCormick, who's going to be leading the presentation today.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you again so much for coming back. We're really excited about this presentation and workshop, actually, and really feel like you guys will leave here with something functional that you'll be able to use in your classroom. Technology issues too. Okay, so this is the objective that was pulled directly from the flyer for the training. And basically what it says is what I just said, that you're going to be leaving today with a function-based behavior support plan that you will be able to use with your target student that you've kind of been completing work on over the past month or so. So for our agenda, we're going to do a quick review of what we talked about in the last course. We're going to go over the functions of behavior and the competing pathways. And you'll see throughout this whole training tonight that we're going to keep referencing those items that we learned about at the last training. We're going to go over the components of a written behavior support plan, which is broken down there, but you all can read that yourselves. But we will get into each of those pieces tonight, and you'll have an opportunity to practice in your small group and individually with our feedback. We'll be walking around and helping you guys with that. And then we'll, of course, at the end have an opportunity for questions. But as we go through, don't hesitate to raise your hand or call one of us over, and we're happy to answer any individual questions that you may have about the plan that you're working on with your students. Okay, so the functions of behavior. This is review. What are the 4 functions of behavior? Right there. Hello. Yeah. It's right up there. Oh. So share them out. Yep. Tangible. Yeah. Attention. And automatic. Yep. Automatic reinforcement or sensory. So just keep that, keep that in the back of your head as we're going through. We're going to keep coming back to these 4 functions of behavior. All behaviors that we're going to be discussing relate to these functions. It might be more than one, but we're always looking back to these 4 functions. Okay, so this is the ABC data sheet that we shared with you all last class. It's the completed ABC data sheet. And part of your homework to prepare for this class was to complete your own ABC data sheets. So you were to go back into your classrooms and select your target behavior and work through this data sheet with your student while you're observing the behavior. We realized last time that we didn't talk to you about how you analyze this. So, that's obviously a key part of figuring out the function of behavior is how do you analyze the data. So we want to take a minute and take a look at this sample data sheet that we provided you with last time and take a look at what is the probable function of this behavior from the sample data sheet. So if you look at the bottom under where it says antecedent and consequence, those are the 2 pieces that you're really looking at to help determine the function of behavior. In red, under antecedent and consequences, those are the behavior responses that would indicate that the behavior is most likely maintained by escape. And they say you delivered an instruction and you terminated an instruction. So for those behavior occurrences, that was what happened immediately before and what happened immediately after the behavior. For the behaviors that are highlighted in orange, those are the behaviors that were maintained by tangible, access to something tangible. So there were 2 behavior occurrences for this sample that were maintained by access to a tangible item. And then in the green box, you can see the behaviors that were likely maintained by access to attention. So you approached the student, you walked away from the student, you were attending to others. And then under the consequences, you redirected the student, you stated no or stop, or you blocked the behavior. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can put it in. I'll put it up through the classroom. I'll put it up to the classroom when you guys are doing one of your activities.
So, and another thing, you know, when we use this ABC data sheet, you know, we're trained behavior analysts. We know exactly which functions to look at and kind of what it leads towards. There are other ABC data sheets that you can find online that are developed that kind of have lines drawing directly to what function that might likely be. And you can just Google search those. We could also probably put some of those up in the classroom as well, maybe more for that. But sometimes those teachers find those very user friendly because you can just, you know, after you collect the data, it kind of makes the connection for you. Okay, so I know that was just kind of a quick overview, and it's a lot of information to take in. Does everybody have their ABC data sheets from their students who they collected data on? Yes. Okay, so if you have it, great. If you don't, work with somebody at your table. We're gonna take a look at the data that you have and hypothesize the function of your behavior based on those data. So again, if you don't have your students' data, work with somebody at your table.
Questions that tell you
Yes.
what they're looking at.
We never actually had to submit upload those data sheets. It was a summary of them that was.
Yep.
Okay, so type away at questions. If you guys have any questions about this independent work, you're going to be trying to look at your ABC data sheets. So again, these are the functions you're looking for. You're looking at your ABC data sheets and trying to figure out the function for your student. Do we write the functions as a question? I'm not sure what you mean. You're trying to hypothesize your functions. You're going to use that information in your behavior support plan. Yep, you're logging in with as you log in, your name pops up and I know that you've signed in. We have about 1 more minute on this. Nope, don't need to type anything into the chat. This is just to be able to answer questions. Your information is going to go in your behavior support plan, which is then going to get uploaded into the classroom. So then we'll have all of that information. All of the pieces that you're working on will become one final behavior support plan that you'll then submit to the classroom. And if you're figuring out that there are multiple functions, that happens a lot. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. That's the timer. So we're going to go back and join the group.
All right, 30 more seconds on this.
What happened?
Okay, we're going to regroup back up here, and just, I know it looks like there's a lot of really good conversations going on, but we are going to have a lot of opportunity to practice tonight, so if you didn't completely finish what you're working on right now, determining the function from your data, you can go back to that the next time you break. Oh, okay. I had said I realized there's probably a lot of good conversations still going on. Lorraine, sorry. But we have a lot. We're gonna have a lot of opportunities to break out and have you working on these items that we're having you work on. So if you didn't quite finish this,
You guys are doing great.
You can work on it the next time.
You guys are doing great.
Like Steph said in the intro, we really want to make sure we get through all of the content. And then, when we're finished, if anybody needs more support with anything, you can reach out to one of us. So we really want to make sure we touch on every piece of it. Okay, so this should look familiar from the last training. This is the competing pathways assessment, and we really want to make sure that we keep this in mind as we're thinking about writing the actual behavior support plan. So this really kind of functions to overlay all the content that's going to go into your written behavior support plan. And I'm going to reference this throughout the evening, so this isn't the only time you're going to see this, so you don't need to commit it to memory or anything like that. Okay, so you all have written, printed out, you should have a printed out version of a blank behavior support plan. So what we're going to do across the training is break this into various pieces and kind of address each piece, address one piece at a time, and then allow you to have practice on that piece while receiving support from all of us. So the first section of this that is highlighted is the basic student information with when you complete this and submit it online, we don't need the student ID and all that. You can just put the student name. That's sufficient for our purposes. So that's at the top, and then we have the behavior support plan objective. We have the description of the target behaviors and the functional assessment results. So, yes. So, sorry. Under the objective, that part is probably new to you guys, correct? The objective? Yeah. Yes, okay. So I realized the target behaviors for decrease should not be new. That's what you've been working on. That's what you've been collecting data on. So that part is not new. objective, target
Can you
behaviors
hear
for
me now?
increase, and the functional assessment results. Those are the pieces that we're gonna work on filling in.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so like I promised, there would be
This is
more time
so
to work on the data if you hadn't already taken a look at it. We're gonna break into small groups, so just at your table, this is an
Somebody let me know
opportunity
if you
to
can hear
utilize
me
your
now.
colleagues and the program directors as we kind of walk around. We're gonna help you work on the pieces that were just highlighted. So we're gonna talk about the objective. So what is the purpose of your behavior support plan? Why are you writing it? What behaviors do you want to decrease?
I'm
What
getting the
behaviors
green
do you want to
dots,
decrease?
so it
You're
should
going
be
to also
working.
be reviewing
Awesome.
your operational
Perfect.
definitions for your target
Thanks.
behavior. Sometimes what we find is that after you start
Great.
taking some data and you've seen the behavior a little bit more, you need to modify your operational definition. So that's okay. That's what you want to spend some time, a little bit of time doing here. And then you're also going to work on developing your operational definitions for your target behaviors for increase. So in other words, what should the child be doing instead of engaging in these problem behaviors? And you're also going to be thinking about your hypothesized function of the target behavior for decrease, and that's based on your ABC data. So this is a time, again, if you weren't able to quickly look at your data in the 3 minutes that we just had, take a little bit more time now. Again, this is a draft, so don't feel like you need to, jot some notes in the form and then you'll be able to finalize it later. Okay, so we're gonna have about 12 minutes for this, and program directors will be walking around to provide feedback and also use your colleagues.
Okay, team,
Okay.
let's go work on some objectives and operational definitions. Got about 12 minutes. Fire away with whatever questions come up. And like she said, remember, it's a draft, so just give it a shot. And you guys should already have the target behaviors for decrease from the last time probably. So the first couple minutes, just a quick objective, and then focus the rest of your time on those behaviors for increase, those behaviors that are gonna replace the behaviors we wanna get rid of. And then looking again at those data sheets and figuring out the function. And for the function, also remember to pull in the fast and all those other things that you guys did in the first one. Can the objective be as open-ended as Julio will be successful in school and community settings, or do I need to refine it considerably? I think for now, keep it broad, and we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics. And it's really just an overall, why do we have this plan in place? What are the challenging behaviors interfering with? So Julio's struggling in school and in the community settings. So we want to improve his success. I think that's okay. If you haven't already, go ahead and move on to the behaviors for increase and the function piece. You're very welcome, Aaron. Okay, I have a comment that says the target behavior for increase reads, Julio will use a picture symbol and or gesture to request time with staff. That sounds like a great replacement behavior, something we want to teach him so that those other ways of getting staff attention can decrease. Sounds great. So this next piece says a target behavior for decrease reads, when is a calm and controlled frame of mind, Julio will be given access to his pacer walker. That sounds like a bit of information that might go into the reinforcement strategies. So, so you're saying, so what is the behavior you're talking about decreasing though? What is the actual problem behavior for Julio? I'm a little confused about that piece, sorry. Okay, so the actual behaviors that are happening for Julio are those aggressive behaviors of grabbing, scratching, biting, or running his wheelchair into furniture or people. So those would be all of the behaviors to decrease. Does that make sense? And we would want to be specific as far as what those behaviors look like, and remember the examples and non-examples. So scratching, does it only include making contact with another person's skin? Do you want to count it if it's on the clothing? Those kinds of things. Does a bite attempt count, or is it only if he makes contact with skin? And how do you describe the running the wheelchair into furniture or people? Is that something that can happen accidentally, or does he actually wheel his chair into something? So you would maybe want to put the non-examples for that piece as, you know, wheels his wheelchair into the corner of a table while trying to fit through a small space or something. So that wouldn't necessarily count as him ramming his wheelchair because it's something he couldn't necessarily control at that point. Does that all make sense? We have about 3 more minutes, so now is when you'd want to really be taking a look at writing up what you think the hypothesized function is going to be for your plan. And so just in a sentence or two, you would note, based on ABC data collection, observations, and some indirect measures such as the FAST, the hypothesized function for the behaviors targeted for decrease is blah, blah, blah. Got 1 more minute. How you guys doing? So you guys should have a draft of, oh, hold on. So the target behavior to decrease would include aggressive physical contact with staff or students, both on skin and clothing, with the intention to scratch or bite. He will decrease intentional and forceful propelling of his chair to others and nearby. So when we're talking about behaviors, we can't ever assume intention because we can't see intention, right? So we don't know what the intention is when he does it. We can only talk about what we actually see. So I like the physical contact with staff or students on the skin and clothing. So we would have to take out the intention to scratch or bite. And if we are describing the behavior as aggression, then we would just say, aggression, includes physical contact with staff or students, and then I would say maybe with fingernails and or teeth, and then the wheelchair piece would be propelling his wheelchair into others or nearby furniture. And then you would just have some examples and non-examples of what might not count in those steps. Does that make sense, Erin? Kate, I see that you are having some technical difficulties. Are you all set now? Are you good? I'm gonna walk us back to the group, but keep asking questions. Yes. They're still plugging away over here, so feel free to ask some more questions. Sounds good, Kate.
All right, guys, we're gonna come back together. Okay, so there are some really great conversations going on and a lot of really, really great questions. A couple of questions that I heard were around objective statements because that is something that we did not specifically go over in this training or in the previous training. We know that. Just very briefly, when you're thinking about writing an objective for a behavior support plan, think about an objective for an IEP. So you want to make sure that it's measurable. What is your overall goal? You don't need to be as specific as you are on IEP objectives, but just make sure that what you're putting under the objective is measurable and directly related to the student's behavior. Up on the screen right now is a sample behavior support plan, which we're gonna, I'm gonna continually, again, refer to this as we work through or as you all work through each of your individual plans, we're going to refer to this sample. We will have printouts when you leave that you can kind of take with you to use as a sample. Just as a note, this child is a child in a substantially separate classroom. So, I know in speaking with many of you, you teach children.
Other people who showed up give you their names through the classroom.
Yeah.
There's 12 people watching right now.
Yeah, there were 2 or 3 more that added.
Okay, just tell them to do it when they get a chance.
Yeah, and we have printouts too. For when you leave. So we'll,
Guys, if you're watching,
we'll-
please make sure
we'll
you
put it
sign
on
in through the Google
Classroom
Classroom so we have your name.
On my list.
I just lost a viewer.
Yeah, it's the same thing, it's just kind of interchangeable language. Yeah, behavior support plan, behavior intervention plan. Yeah. Good question. Okay, so the next portion of the behavior support plan that we are going to work through is, you can see it highlighted in red. We're going to talk about antecedent events for challenging behavior, precursor behaviors, and antecedent or preventative strategies. So, as I promised, here's the competing pathways again. And highlighted are the sections on the competing pathways that kind of overlay the behavior support plan. So many of you do have your completed competing pathways with you. So continue to reference that as we're building this CSP. Okay, so the first little box that I mentioned are the antecedent. I'm gonna back up so you can actually see the screen. Antecedent events for challenging behavior. So when we're thinking about antecedent events, we're really thinking about what happens in the environment that may trigger the behavior.
It's the same classroom you're all set.
So we really want to make sure that we're considering things that may have happened significantly before the behavior, or things that may happen immediately before the behavior. So we call those distal antecedents and immediate antecedents. Some distal antecedents might be medication changes. Did the student sleep? Did the student have breakfast or not have breakfast, for example? And then immediate antecedents are things like time of day, location, delivery of an instruction, removal of a demand. Those are the things that you are really tracking on your ABC data sheet. Right, sure.
I always have a hard time differentiating setting events from
Great question.
So setting up, when she says those distal antecedents, the longer time back ones, those are the setting events, right? Right, like I didn't have breakfast, my mom yelled at me, my bus driver's a jerk, whatever it is, right?
like home environment, unstable home environment.
Sure, yeah, and so it's not gonna be anything as general as unstable home environment, we're gonna really pinpoint on which aspects of that home environment are causing the problem, right? So for example, a student who engages in food stealing, we're gonna consider maybe the setting event of I'm really hungry, right? I may not be getting fed enough, right? And so before we start targeting the consequence side of things, we might look at some of the antecedents that can be supported to make it so the student's has no more need for that. We talk about setting events, those are things that are further away, kind of life circumstances.
And a little bit more broad. So
Right.
think more broadly with the setting event, a little bit more narrow. A little bit more narrow with the
And then the antecedent is what you see right before, right? So generally for the antecedent, you're looking in the environment seconds before the behavior, right? Now, maybe minutes in some circumstances, but generally it's just a couple of seconds.
And that goes in what just happened a couple seconds ago.
Yes.
Where did
The setting event. So the setting event on the competing pathways is that first box, right? Yeah.
Are you guys hearing these
Yeah,
questions
that's the
okay?
very first box on the competing pathways.
And sometimes with setting events, that's something where we may use an additional data sheet. So, I've had students, for example, where we've been collecting heaps and heaps of ABC data and still can't figure out the function of the behavior or what's going on. So then we send something home to mom and say, did the student get his medication today? Did he eat breakfast today? How did he sleep last night? So we can track that additional information or gather that additional information. So again, we kind of just addressed this, but this is the ABC data sheet that you all were working off of, and this is highlighted the section that we're going to consider when we're thinking about antecedent events. Okay, so
Next
the
questions, I'll get closer.
little section on your behavior support plan is precursor behaviors. This is an area that can be very confusing, and it can get very frequently confused with antecedent events. So when we're thinking about precursor behavior, we're thinking about the behavior of the student or the child who you're thinking about, and what do they do immediately before your
Okay,
target
great.
behavior.
So when the audience
So
is talking, I'll get
a
closer
couple
to
of
that.
non-student
Gotcha.
examples are before you turn on your blinker in your car so that the person behind you knows you're going to turn. That's a precursor behavior to actually turning your car. Another example, you're going outside and we have the lovely snow like we have right now. You put your boots on before you go out, and you putting your boots on is a precursor behavior to you going out, and your dog knows just by those boots going on that they might be getting to go with you.
So you're thinking in terms of what behavioral signals does the child give you before they go into a full-on crisis, right? Before they absolutely engage in the behavior that you actually are targeting. So, like, for a lot of you, I'm calling out. It's a very common theme that I'm seeing. If Johnny is like squirming around in his seat, or is like kind of like twitching or chomping at the bit, and there's things that you can see in his face or in his behavior that indicates he's about to throw his hand up and not be able to keep his mouth shut and just go, right? That's a signal to you, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to stop in a minute. Is a signal to you that now is the moment to give him attention for sitting quietly. Do it now before the problem behavior happens, so that you can start teaching him that if you can just hold it together, if you can just sit there quietly, you're gonna get to him. You're gonna give him that attention.
So for example, the student, this student is kindergarten. He's very, he doesn't get attention at home.
Yep.
And he's got a lot of energy. He has a lot of energy. So the last time I observed him, his mom took away the iPad because he misbehaved to take to school. So he was without the iPad, and I'm guessing he spent the weekend just watching videos of that. So he comes angry, and in the morning they are in the circle time, and he starts making noises. But there's no time, as soon as they see, there's no time where the teacher couldn't reinforce him, because as soon as they see, first he doesn't want to see. If I'm going to see next to the teacher, and they start making noises to interrupt the teacher.
Yep.
So when are you going to reinforce? How can you?
Before they sit, right? The minute he walks through the door, you start giving him lots of attention. You start spending time with him. If you know on Mondays he's bored to tears from the weekend, then what you do is you as soon as he comes off the bus, right? I am so happy to see you. I'm so glad you came off the bus. You're so happy. You're smiling. You're here with me. Let's go and spend a minute with him. I know that's a really busy time in the morning, but if that's going to put his entire rest of his day on a positive mode because you caught those precursor behaviors, that's what you want to do. And
Or give him a chore, right? A helper.
if it's attention maintained, you want to do something that involves him getting a lot of attention. However you do that.
Okay, thank you.
Did you guys catch all that?
Okay, so very quickly, we're gonna look at a really quick video of a little girl. target behavior that we're looking at here is slapping. All right, so I'm not going to provide an operational definition or anything. You all will know very quickly what that means. So think about what she's doing immediately before she engages in the target behavior of slapping.
So whenever she plays a video, you want to run to the bathroom.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I know that
Sorry
was
about
really
that,
quick. What were
guys.
some of the precursor behaviors? She just slapped. Screaming, pounding your fist, clapping her hands, hair pulling. Perfect. So those are all the things that she's doing immediately before to cue us that she's then going to engage in what we're considering to be the target behavior of slapping.
He's freezing on the scene.
They're pretty close. It'll be off by a couple seconds. or
Which
like
is a
quarter
lot
of
when it's a
second.
10-second video.
No, I'm sorry. They should be off by like a quarter of a second, but that's why the sound only comes from one.
You want to see the slap?
I didn't even have time to get to the bathroom for that one. Sorry, guys.
She's slapping her right now on this. We're not head.
Okay.
When dealing with a 5-year-old who slaps, when you see precursor behaviors, if you don't want to get slapped in the face, what's the first thing you should do? No, not hold her hands, not time out. Stand up. If you don't want to get slapped in the face by a 5-year-old, don't do this when they're getting ready to slap you, right?
He was
Step
bending
number
down.
1, get all the way up so you don't get slapped in the face.
Okay, so Zach touched on this a little bit, but the next piece we're going to look at in the behavior support plan are antecedent or preventative strategies. So what can you do in the environment or in your interactions with the child in order to prevent the behavior from occurring? So the example that you gave about attention, praise that child the second they get off the bus. That was a great example of what we would do in order to prevent the behavior from occurring. Some things that we have listed here: environmental modifications, schedule modifications, and visual supports. These are all broad things that can look very different in the implementation in each
If there's
of
a
your
certain
classrooms.
kind of
We are going
look
to provide
that happens
some links
before
to
a particular
the
behavior,
examples on Google Classroom.
or if they're looking at you, sort of seeking attention, certainly.
Okay, so we are now going to break again into your small groups or working individually to take a look at this portion of the behavior support plan. You can take some time to jot some notes down around all those 3 parts that we just discussed. So you're going to develop your antecedent events based on your ABC data, precursor behaviors, and antecedent preventative strategies. So go ahead, break out. We're going to take 8 minutes. And we really need to stick to that because I promise this is good content.
All right, back to our corner, which is FYI, the ladies' room. You guys doing okay? I'm hoping you could hear a little bit better as I got closer to the questions. The one lady was giving an example about a student who had not received a whole lot of attention or stimulation at home over the weekend. And that was one of those setting events and what to do and when to start giving attention. And the answer to that, of course, was immediately as soon as they got off the bus. I think you guys could hear that part. I've lost a couple viewers. The ladies' room is the best place to be so that you guys don't get tons of feedback. It's nice and quiet in here. It's warm. Excellent that some of you are still there. We're down to 9 viewers, so some people keep dropping off. And I'm quite enjoying chatting with you guys and feel like I'm like working with you, so I'm okay that my office is currently the ladies' room. Awesome. Catherine's with us and Jen O'Brien is with us. We're now up to 10 viewers, so there are still 2 that fell off. Oh, we're down to 9 again. We're back up to 10. Don't worry too much about it right now if you're having some technical stuff. As long as you get back in action by about 5:25, that's when the presentation will get going again. Yeah, so the antecedent events are things like, being in a loud and congested space, decreased staff attention. Those kinds of things are definitely the antecedent events. And then the preventative strategies are things like, giving high rates of attention on a schedule, visual supports, various other things that may need to be in place before any challenging behavior may occur to reduce the likelihood that those are going to happen. Nice to see you again, Kristen. I am up to 11 viewers. Yes. Oops. Down to 10. Got about 3 more minutes to go, team. Question about the video from the last session. That's a question I will check in with Zach about. It should be available in Google Classroom, but I, to be honest, don't know exactly how all that works. So I will check in with Zach on that in 1 minute when we go back and join the group. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go back and join the group a little bit. And I will get some Google Classroom answers from Zach. I am very new to Google Classroom myself, so that's why I don't know anything. But Zach should be able to help answer that question. He's chatting in the back of the room right now, so I'll wait till he goes back up this way and then I'll find out. But we're also kind of trying to hold off on technological Google Classroom type questions until after, to make sure that we can focus on the content for this one. But we'll make sure that question gets answered, okay?
You can give it 1 minute.
30 seconds, guys.
Okay, that sounds good, Aaron. He'll probably be able to help you better. We're just wrapping up the group discussions on this end. You guys feeling okay?
All right, guys, we're gonna come back together. I just want to reiterate again, I realize this is feeling very rushed, and that it's a lot of content. We acknowledge that. I do want to make sure, again, that we just get through everything, and just know, you're creating a draft here. You're getting your ideas down on paper.
Can I jump in there too?
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point. I just want to kind of echo that a little bit. The expected outcome of this training is not that you guys will be experts in behavior analysis. This is an overview course, so don't feel like you need to be leaving this series as an expert. So we're going through a lot of information. We're going through it quickly, but the outcome is not that you're going to be like an expert in writing FBAs and an expert in writing BSPs. This is kind of the 101 crash course. Okay, kind of keep that in mind as your objective for the course.
The goal here is to get you to think more behaviorally so that you can spearhead off some of the easy stuff.
All right, so up on the screen now again is a sample that, as I said, we promise we will get to, that you'll be able to take a look at in a little more detail so you can actually read it. Okay, so the next part that we're going to get into are reinforcement strategies. And that's highlighted there on the VSP. On the competing pathways assessment, you can, oops, sorry, I'm gonna change the slide. This is what you're doing when you see the desired behaviors and the alternate behaviors. You're providing that reinforcement following those behaviors. Okay, reinforcement. It's not just, oh, the child likes this, so this is gonna be my reinforcement. It's what causes the future occurrence of the behavior. So it's not just, oh, he likes Skittles, so I'm gonna give him a Skittle, and that means he's gonna behave. It means I'm gonna give him a Skittle, and then the next time I want him to do something, or that target behavior, he's then going to do it. So we really need to think about all occurrence of the behavior, not just one instance, and not just preferences, not just, oh, he likes video games, so maybe we can use video games. Well, what really causes those target behaviors to happen in the future? Yes.
You're talking about target behaviors that we want to increase or decrease?
You got it.
Increase.
Target behaviors we want to increase are the behaviors that we reinforce.
I'll set it so I won't go to sleep anymore, but you need to log in first.
Sorry. Okay. So things that can function as reinforcers are highly, highly varied depending on the child. There's some really
You're talking about the
weird
behavior
things that
support
might
plan
function to
template?
reinforce,
Yeah, we have
one
a
child's
sample
behavior that another
that will
child
be
could
put
care
in the
less
Google
about.
Classroom of
Some,
all the
some
pieces
obvious
together.
tickles, books,
Once this is done.
a big ball. I have a couple of kids who just like strings, and another child could care less about a string. So you really need to think about that individual student and what it is that reinforces that behavior or causes that behavior to occur more frequently in the future. These are some of the key points about reinforcement. We do, at the bottom, you can see it's underlined and in bold. There is a link right there to our reinforcement and rapport building training that gets really into this. It was a full 2-hour training, and we're just giving you one slide here. So again, we realize this is a crash course, but if you do want more information, take a look at the training that's linked here, and you guys can get a lot more information. But the key point,
No problem. We're
we
going to
need
have
to
a
make
bunch
sure
of
that we're
samples
reinforcing consistently.
that we put in the
So
classroom.
whenever
Full
you
perfect
see
class.
the second you catch the child doing what you want them to do, you provide that reinforcement. And you do that all day long, not just for the first 30 minutes that they walk in the door. We need to make sure we're reinforcing immediately. So as soon as you see that behavior you want to see, you provide that reinforcement. Not 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes down the road. I kind of touched on this already, but you want to make sure that you're using student-selected reinforcers, so something that the child really enjoys, not something that you might think that they would like. Based on just walking around, it sounds like a lot of the kids and a lot of your classes might be able to actually tell you what it is that they want to work for, or that they really enjoy. So use the child as a resource. Ask them, what do you want to work for? And you can even create, a reinforcement menu. So here are some things that you could work for. What are your favorites? Because obviously sometimes some of the things that kids say might not be accessible. So you can kind of shape it a little bit in that way. Use a wide variety of reinforcers so that you don't want the child to get sick of whatever it is that they're working for. A lot of times what I'll recommend to teachers is for them to use a choice box or a treasure chest, depending
Sounds
on
like she's
the age
covering
of the child.
that
So
question.
you put everything that they love in one place, and then when they earn something, they can just open that box and pick whatever it is they want out of there. Yeah, go ahead. Question?
In this training that reinforcement, that one, is there sample reinforcement menus?
I don't know that there are sample menus, but that would just be something that you could make your students. So you could just type up a list if they're readers, for example, of things that you think they might like or that you've seen them playing at recess or whatever. And just an informal list that would be specific for your classroom. I think the biggest key point here is to use yourself as a reinforcer. There's nothing more powerful than that child wanting to be with you and wanting, using your social interaction with them as something positive. That is the key. Make yourself the best thing in the world for them. They want to please you, they want to be around you, and there's nothing more powerful than that. And
So,
sometimes it's really tricky because
to
they,
your question, Kate,
really
the
wearing on your
idea of
nerves,
just
and you don't
creating
want
a
to
menu
be,
for them of the things that
you want to
are
get away from
available in the
But,
classroom, kind of
again,
exposing them to
build
some
yourself
different
up as
activities,
that reinforcer, there's nothing more powerful.
extra free time, new games that kind of stuff.
So one of the points
and then they can select from
that
those.
linking to the training there makes for this is this 6-hour series, several of the slides are, one slide is an additional 2 hours of training. We have all of this stuff on the web. We also are providing it throughout this year as well. So please, by all means, if there's something we talk about that you want to hear more information on, chances are we have a whole 2-hour training on that one topic. We have a bank of like 30 trainings that we have
60
tried to
hours.
record. Yeah.
check out the reinforcement and rapport building training, Kate. And there may be some more information on there for you. It is difficult
I
often
will
for upper
share through
elementary
the Google
classrooms.
Classroom how to get to it. Yeah.
Often it's about free time, time with your friends,
Okay, again, so
time
So-
with computer games,
that was
things
just
like
like,
that.
you
That
know,
often
very brief
uh,
introduction to some reinforcement
have
strategies
worked
that
well in my
that you can use in
experience.
the classroom, but that being said, we would like to also take a stab at it, behavior support plan. So here what you're gonna do is develop reinforcement strategies for your students. You're gonna take your students' behavior directly from the target behaviors for increase and decrease, and we'll be walking around again. We have about 8 minutes for this.
So I'm gonna do some walking and talking. Kristen said, "What if I can't find a reinforcer that is powerful enough? It's not changing behavior. That is one of the biggest things that often come up, and one of the things that I have teachers think about is if there's something that they seem to really like, but it's not changing the behavior, are we asking too much behavior at once? And so we may have to give reinforcement for some smaller bits of the task, and then they might be potent. So, it might not work that one M&M is going to get a kid to do a whole task, but one M&M is going to get a kid to do one question and then the next question, and then we talk about, working in token boards and some things like that that may help with that. And I mean, again, this is one of the biggest challenges is finding something that motivates a student. I have several students right now that's our biggest struggle. We've tried the prize box, it didn't work. We've tried some free time, it didn't work. And so one of the things we were talking about is really reducing the amount of response effort to get that earned. With some of the older, higher functioning kids, again, you can kind of talk with them about it, giving them some suggestions. Sometimes novelty is helpful, so just like we can, try and download a new free game onto the computer or the iPad. We can pick one. Sometimes it's just adding up more free time, less time to work or time with friends, time to go visit people, preferred people in the school. Sometimes kids like to be helpers. Often checking in with the parents and seeing some of the things that they like to do at home is helpful. But again, like you said, it may not be available in school. This is definitely a really big challenge for a lot of kids is finding what is motivating. But again, if we're finding nothing that's motivating, we might need to think about what we're asking them to do and make it easier for them to earn that, and then eventually make it harder to earn that or extend the amount of time or amount of work they need to do. Sugar-free gum, something like gum is sometimes helpful because it lasts a little while, and that's helpful. A lot of people really do want to avoid the edible reinforcers. A lot of parents really want to avoid the edible reinforcers, and that is totally understandable. The key being that we need to find something that is motivating enough to get at least one small change in behavior and build from there. And we want to try and vary up the kinds of things that students can earn as much as possible, because if we have only found one thing, they're going to get bored of that and satiate on that often pretty quickly. So we want to try and always be looking for new things. Sometimes it's really, like Kylan was saying about the interaction. Yes, I'm in the ladies' room. About the interaction, I have somebody who works with severely disabled older students, and the reinforcer for one guy is clips of The Price is Right. The reinforcer for another guy is like the teacher kind of pretend reprimanding him. So like, what'd you do that for? What are you doing? That's silly. Like this just sort of only him kind of reaction that he does. With another guy, it's like big giant sunglasses that he puts on and does a little like show for the big giant sunglasses. So he's put a lot of time and effort into really just trying some different things out and figuring out what works. Because again, the key is they might like a lot of things, but they might not be willing to work for a lot of things or change their behavior for a lot of things. Sometimes there are also strategies called like the hero strategies. So like if you have a class-wide system, earning points for the class towards a bigger thing, sometimes that helps. And they get to be the cool guy who earned extra points for their class. A lot of those sensory station type things do work for a lot of kids, and giving them options of different bins and things, and you can be switching out what's in them, you know, like the cornmeal or rice or popcorn and water table and all those kinds of things, so that they don't satiate, because it's not always the same for weeks and weeks and weeks. That often helps too. You guys have a lot of great suggestions for each other, which is awesome. Sorry, I'm just feeling I should leave those suggestions up for you guys for longer so you can still read them. Once I answer it, then it goes away. But a lot of the big sensory stuff can be really reinforcing for kids. I just got the 1 minute warning, so I'm gonna start walking back. Ooh, a fan with some essential oils. That's a new one. I have seen some of the like little tiny fans, or like the water spray / fan things.
Okay, guys, we're gonna come back together.
right, you know, like.
Remember, this is a draft,
All right,
so the things you come up as potential reinforcers may or may not work,
Guys,
and you
we're
may
gonna
have to
come
go
back
back to the
together.
drawing board.
And take a look up at the screen. I know you cannot see it, and I know it's blurry. So I'm gonna read a couple just examples of reinforcement strategies. So for this student, some of the target behaviors for increase is the student is compliant with scheduled activities and teacher directions, and then the teacher behavior is educators provide task-specific praise and physical interactions. For example, great job sitting for morning meeting, and simultaneously patting the student on the back. And then we provide the schedule of reinforcement. So on a variable interval, 30-second schedule. That's a little bit more in depth than you all are going to get at this point. But again, this is just a sample of you know where you'll eventually be. A second behavior here is participation in group activities, and the teacher behavior is educator provides task-specific praise and physical interaction. Again, the same teacher behaviors for the first student behavior that I talked about, and with the schedule of reinforcement again. So those are just some examples of you know, some of the language that you're going to use here, and you'll be able to take a look at that in the handout more specifically. Okay, so the next part of the behavior support plan is teaching strategies. We're gonna go kind of quickly through this because the part after this, the consequence strategies, is the real kind of meat of the training that we have, that we're going to spend the most time on. So I'm going to move a little bit quickly through this part. Here's your competing pathways again. When we're talking about teaching strategies, we're thinking about how do we teach the replacement behaviors, the desired behaviors, and the alternative behaviors. Okay, so teaching strategies are probably going to look a little bit different depending on your classroom. A lot of you in inclusion classrooms may not be using discrete trial training. That's something that we use a lot in our substantially separate classrooms for students who really need that practice and repetition and skills broken down into very small parts in order to acquire new skills. Incidental teaching, that is highlighted on there because that's something that is probably very applicable to many of you who work in inclusion classrooms. I think one of the big misunderstandings about incidental teaching is that, oh, I'm using incidental teaching, it just happens in the classroom. No, incidental teaching is a very clearly planned and thought out process. So you are going to set up your environment and set up your learner for the opportunities to learn. Yes?
I'm not familiar with that.
Sure.
What is this? What do you mean by incident?
Sure. So, like I said, incidental teaching is a very clearly planned and thought out opportunity to instruct a skill in the natural environment. So, a clear example of that is if you have a child, and I'm going to use a pretty basic skill that many of your children might not be working on, but if you have a child who is working on requesting, for example, so asking for something that they want, and they have this toy, it's, you know, say a fire truck toy that they just love. You're gonna put that fire truck way up high on a shelf, and in order to require them to point to it and say fire truck, and then you give them the fire truck, as opposed to leaving it down low and just having them access it on their own. So, you know, that you're manipulating the environment in order to elicit a skill, a target skill.
Another example of incidental teaching, I know that many of you have calling out as a target behavior, would be to go up to a student prior to teaching a lesson and say, at some point in the lesson, I'm going to ask this question, right? Here is the answer, right? Write it down, take a note, take a picture, whatever you need to do. And when I ask that question, I am going to call on you if and only if you sit there quietly with your hand raised. And so you've set up this opportunity with some antecedent teaching, but you've told the student there is going to come a moment where you are going to have the answer, and I am going to ask a question. I am guaranteeing you I will call on you as long as you do the thing I'm trying to teach you to do, right? And in that circumstance, then you're going to call on them immediately, right? As soon as you see the hand going those first couple times. But that's also incidental teaching. You're setting up an opportunity for the learner to be successful in the natural environment.
Okay, so there are a couple other examples here. Task analyses, social stories, behavior contracts, video modeling. Again, these are some things that we have full 2-hour trainings on. So if there are areas of interest, we can, Zach's going to share that with you guys. I'm going to do this a little bit backwards. So I was going to have you break first, but instead I'm going to take a look at this completed behavior support plan that has some teaching strategies in it. And then when we break, I want you to think about the strategies that are listed here and see how they might be applicable in your classroom. Yes.
Can you give a brief definition of task analysis?
Sure. So, yep. So a task analysis is breaking down a skill into smaller parts and teaching that skill part by part to mastery. That's
Yeah.
okay.
So like the toileting routine or hand washing routine, those kinds of
Making a
things.
peanut butter and jelly sandwich, tying your shoe. So really thinking about each small part of any given task and how you can break it down and teach each small part in order to eventually achieve that larger skill.
Playing blocks would be another example of something you
Yeah.
could teach with task analysis.
And the video modeling.
Sure. So video modeling is, producing or providing a video of a targeted skill that you would play for a child before they have the opportunity to engage in that skill. So, that's used a lot with play skills. So maybe you're teaching a child how to play with, we have one in district of a small school bus. So the child kind of walks the little character on the video, the characters walk up onto the bus and sit down, and then the next one walks up onto the bus and sits down, the door shuts, and the bus drives away. So that might be an example of a video model that you would show to a child, and then they would then engage in that. They would be expected to engage in that response when they're playing with the school bus.
They would
Not when they
imitate the
get on
video.
the bus.
Right. Or, maybe. I mean, it depends on what your
What you're
target
trying to
is,
model.
but yeah, could be. Okay, so on our sample, some of the teaching strategies that we have listed are modeling. So that's defined as deliberately planned peer and adult models that will be provided for the specific on-task behavior and participation in group activities. Discrete trial training, I kind of touched on that a little bit. So specific skills and acquisition will be taught utilizing discrete trials. And then here we reference individualized programming. Again, I mentioned this is a child in a substantially separate classroom. So he's going to have a program book with all of his individualized lesson plans broken down there. So that's what's referenced here. That, again, that may not be the case for many of your kids. Incidental teaching, again, this will be broken down in an individualized program book for the child. And then shaping. This is one that might be very applicable to a lot of your classrooms. So participation in group activities and compliance with teacher directives will be shaped. Initially, the child will make choices regarding if he wants to engage in a break or in the scheduled activity. Following 5 consecutive school days during which the child demonstrates on-task behaviors and compliance, for 80% of 30-minute intervals, his break activities will be shaped. So in other words, he will initially be able to decide, I want to take a break or I want to engage in the targeted task. And then as he's showing compliance with this, he then isn't given the break choice anymore, and he's required to then participate in the task. Okay, so do you guys think we should break out and have them work on this?
Okay. Keep on.
Okay. All right. So, yep. Go ahead.
Did you define discrete trial training?
Yeah. So I talked about it. It's kind of
Discrete trial training. Sorry.
I think you said like some of you will be doing it, some of you won't.
Yeah. So discrete trials. You're taking tasks and breaking them down into small, measurable parts and teaching through practice and repetition.
How is that different from task analysis?
So a task analysis is a series of steps, like for example, building with blocks or toileting routine. Whereas a discrete trial is an easier name for it is a learning unit,
And it's, you ask the child a question, they respond, you reinforce. And you do that over and over and over and over again for children who have a really, or a challenging time learning new skills. So a good example of that would be like a matching task that we often do, where you hold up a picture and the student has to point to the right comparison picture, and then you would shuffle the cards and you do it again, and you'd shuffle the cards and you do it again. So that would be like a discrete trial.
If you want more, again, that's an area that we do definitely have trainings on, and you can even just Google search discrete trial, and a lot of really probably clear videos will come up on exactly what that looks like.
Yep.
Okay, just for the sake of time, we are going to skip over the turn and talk for that piece, because I think that's an area that's going to be really individualized for each of your classrooms, as is the rest. But what? Yeah, and we'll touch on that in session 3 as well. Okay, so here is kind of, now that we're an hour into the evening, or a little more than an hour, I think at this point. Yeah, we have 35 minutes left. So this is kind of the meat of your behavior support plan. So called consequence strategies. What happens when the child engages in those target behaviors for decrease? How do you respond? If all your antecedent stuff doesn't work and you still see these problem behaviors, what do you do? On the competing pathways, this is under, it's highlighted in red again. These are the consequences. So you've tried the antecedent strategies, you've tried the replacement behaviors and, providing reinforcement for those replacement behaviors, and you're still seeing your target behavior for decrease. So here's how you respond. This is where we really are, making sure that we're thinking about our function of behavior. We want to make sure that we're responding to the behaviors appropriately. So we're not providing, if the behavior is maintained by attention, we're not providing attention for the target behavior. So we're going to go through each function and provide you with overall things that you should do and things that you should not do if your behavior is maintained by each of the functions. We're going to start with escape.
And you've got this on your handout.
Yes, it is on your handout. So if it's small, you can take a look at your handout. Okay, so if you've determined after you've collected your data and done all your observations and everything that your behavior is maintained by escape, some things you can do. Teach functional communication. So teach them another way to ask for a break or an appropriate way to get out of that activity that they don't want to engage in. You definitely want to represent the original demand. So don't let the child get out of the task for engaging in that problem behavior. Even if they're flopping on the floor and having a tantrum and whatever else, by the time they return to their seat, they still need to engage in that original demand. So you want to deny access to reinforcing items in the environment, assuming that the student is attempting to gain access. Sometimes students will flop to the floor and kind of scoot around and try to get all the fun things on the shelves that are around. Don't let them access those items. You don't want their escape to be fun. You want it to be really boring, and you want them back on task so that then they can start earning access to that reinforcement that you're providing and that you're in control of. Yes. Good question. Go ahead.
Environmental modifications, right? So what it
So
really comes
how
down
does
to
it
is if
stop
you've
the
got a
behavior?
kid who's having a really hard time and is doing a lot of these behaviors, you might need to change the setup of your entire classroom temporarily, but make it so that these things are not always out, right? If you've got those bookcases that are on the wheels that fold them shut for parts of your day, right? It's annoying, but what it'll mean is you're not going to end up chasing that kid around the room, taking things out of their hands every 5 seconds while they laugh in your face, right? So the immediate go-to gut reaction most teachers have to that statement is, I am not going to reorganize my entire room for one kid who can't behave. The problem with that is you're going to spend all year fussing with that kid if you don't do it, and it's going to ruin your year, right?
Okay, so to go off of that, while the child is not engaging in the targeted task, you do not deliver programmed reinforcers. So if you have a token board set up, or if you're providing praise for on-task behavior, don't do that when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. A really good trick if your child is engaging in escape maintain behaviors is to present a high probability task. In other words, something that is really, really easy for them. So a lot of times what we'll do is a gross motor imitation, for example. So all you're doing is say, do this, and then they clap, and nice job clapping, and then you move right on to the lower probability task, or the thing that they're trying to avoid. It kind of builds momentum, so it gets them going. It provides them with access to your attention, which we've already talked about is highly motivating to them, and they want to access that. Things to avoid. I already kind of touched on this. Do not remove the original demand. It doesn't mean to force them to comply. Don't shove them in a seat and hold them there and hand over hand prompt them to do the task. Do not do that. But gradually get them back into the task that you're presenting, and make sure that that they do carry through with that original demand. Do not provide attention for the behavior. You don't want to tack on another function here. We're already, we're talking about an escape maintain behavior. You don't want to then start providing attention. So now you have an escape maintain behavior and an attention maintain behavior. Then it's even harder to make the behavior go away. So ignore the behavior. That does not mean ignore the child. Ignore the behavior.
Can you give an example of what that would look like?
We have some videos. So good question. Don't get into a power struggle. If the child isn't doing what you don't want to do, you're withholding reinforcement. They're not getting what they want. Don't be forcing them, picking them up, putting them in a chair, all that. Avoid that. You don't want to get into that.
Arguing with the child is like wrestling with a greased pig. You're going to get filthy and the pig's going to love it.
You were waiting to say that.
Yes. Do not place the child in timeout. This is exactly what they wanted to begin with. They don't want to be doing the task. So the worst thing you can do is put them in timeout. That means they're not doing the task, which is what they wanted from the get-go. So if it's an escape maintain behavior, do not put the child in timeout.
Turn the screensaver off, then they can stop the sleep.
All right.
Sorry.
Told you.
All right,
write
that
it
was
down.
Okay. All right. So this is a video of a child in a Boston public school inclusion classroom engaging in an escape maintain behavior. The child was cued to enter the classroom, sit down for breakfast, and then that was going to lead into his morning work. And that's where the start of these behaviors began.
Sorry, feedback. Somebody, she tried to guide him, and it didn't work, so she's not dragging him over. She's waiting for him to stand up so she can prompt it.
Drop off their chair, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're not at all fazed by what's going on, but the teacher is often not to be fazed.
I was just talking about how the other kids and nobody's responding with more attention because they have been taught how to ignore this behavior and not respond to it. he's saying the same thing that I said, that we don't want to get in the physical battle. She's trying to sort of block and redirect, but without really getting into a physical struggle with him. Kyla's talking about the fact that this is not a quick process, and often it does take a long time. Initially, this video was originally 12 minutes long, and we had to cut it down a whole lot. But if you don't respond to this behavior, then, you know, and put a plan in place for it, then it's just going to continue to happen and longer and longer and longer. So you have to kind of put in the time initially.
So I think this specific video pattern it wasn't everything. Right.
You have a choice to sit in a chair or sit on the rug.
So she just said you have a choice to sit in a chair or on the rug.
So you're giving him some controlled choices there. You can sit in the chair or sit on the rug. And again, this is an escape maintained behavior, but she's being very careful not to give any additional attention, so that that attention component doesn't become present. And ta-da! He is in his chair.
Look at your choices. You can eat breakfast.
And then she's giving him that token board. That's one of those antecedent strategies, and giving him some choices. So he can be reinforced for engaging in the task that was required of him.
He wants to earn his dinosaur. So she's got his token board out, she's getting ready to set him up with his breakfast. And notice she's also strategically buying time, right? So she's creating this space of time between the problem behavior and his sitting. And now by the time he gets his breakfast, which won't be very long now.
So Zach is talking about how she's sort of specifically trying to buy some time so that she doesn't reinforce him right after he sits, so that there's some time of him engaging in the appropriate behavior before he gets that reinforcement, so that it's very clear to him that he's getting reinforced for the appropriate behavior and not for the other behavior that was happening. So then she prompted him to use some appropriate words so he could get some help. So using some of those incidental teaching strategies in there. And he's back to breakfast. And FYI, this kiddo just had a perfect day today.
It's not, oh no, you missed breakfast, sorry, your friends have moved on. Especially with something like breakfast. No, he still needs to engage in whatever it was he was trying to avoid. And you know, she's making him do that.
And we don't take away meals from kids.
Right, that's the other thing. That's where, nope, so that's where the, on the things to do we were talking about, teach functional communication, that's number one. So teach the child to say, I'm not hungry or I don't want this. That's fine.
Yep.
That is an appropriate way to escape the activity.
So the positive behavior would be, he comes up, he sits down and says, I'm not hungry,
Yep.
I just like some milk today.
Great,
That's great.
great.
Mhm.
That's
And with this kid, we know
fabulous.
he actually does like the cereal and he does want it. So.
Yeah, yay.
And FYI side point, this kid, perfect day today.
Oh, good.
Yay.
Just learned that.
Yep.
That's fine.
That's fine. That can go right under your antecedent strategies on your behavior support plan. So, you know he's a kid who doesn't like breakfast. He eats at home. So one of your antecedent strategies is he has this task to do during breakfast every day. That's fine.
So she was asking if it was okay for him to be engaged in something else, but it's
okay.
not disruptive and not
Moving
eat
along,
breakfast. and not eat
behaviors
something we
maintained
do
by
every single day.
access to tangible items. Again, number one, teach functional communication. So a lot of times it might be appropriate for a child to say, "Can I play with that toy, please?" "Sure, here you go. Have at it." Allow the students to work for the item. So if functional communication at that point isn't appropriate, you can say, "You can't have it now, but if you first do your work, you can then have this item that you want." Again, you want to deny access to the requested item until the student completes the original demand in a lot of cases. So if you ask the child to do something, so you need to do this work task, and they say to you, "But I want the fire truck." Not, "Okay, you can have the fire truck, here you go." Nope, finish your work and then you can have the fire truck. And it depends where you are with a child. Some kids, if their focus is that functional communication and you're really working on building that, you might give them access to that right away for a couple of minutes on a timer and then remove it and have them finish their work and then they gain access to it again. Another thing you can do is provide access to the item or the activity on a schedule. So maybe sometimes twice a day, the child might gain access to the computer if that's something that's preferred. Or they're engaging in problem behaviors in order to access the computer. Or access to a toy every 10 minutes or something. Whatever it is for that individual student, you can help decrease the behavior by providing access to it non-contingently. Things to avoid. Do not give the student the item immediately following the problem behaviors. That was demonstrated a little bit in our last video where she waited a little bit before she gave the token. That behavior wasn't necessarily maintained by access to tangible items, but that's a reinforcement schedule that the student has and that the student is on. So, she waited for him to engage in those positive behaviors before giving him access to that. Again, do not provide attention for the problem behavior. You're just creating more of a problem for yourself anytime you're attending to a behavior. You don't want to pair that additional function. Okay,
I know you want a shower.
All right,
You
so
just
this
had
is
french
the
fries.
guy
So
that
here's the deal.
we found
I
online.
need to
So
go
this
shopping.
guy didn't get
What
paused
do
for
I
you guys
do?
for some reason.
I need to go shopping.
She's
So,
giving you a
when
little
I
intro
shop,
of this kiddo.
What do you need to do?
He's a really involved guy.
Well, what can you do? I'll show you what you can do. Let's talk about it. Here's what you do. Don't fight. Don't yell. Those are the things I need to know. I have to go shopping. You cannot bite and you cannot yell if you want a shower when we're done. Yes, after we go shopping.
So I just got paused for you guys while it's playing in the other room. So basically, what's going on in this video is mom, who's awesome, is really trying to make it clear to him, first shopping, then reinforcer, which in this case is shower, and really making him go through using his communication device so that he understands that. And initially he's still resistant and engages in some hand biting and yelling and things like that, and so she sets it up and just says, okay, well we don't have to go shopping, but that means no shower, and he eventually comes around. I'm gonna try and check in with Zach about why this is not matched up.
Okay. I heard you. Well, what do we do first?
This video is
No,
already
you're not
playing
gonna yell.
while she's talking.
After shopping. First
Listen up.
shopping, then shower. First shopping, then shower. Okay. No shower. Great. Okay. That's fine. Then we're not gonna do the shower. I was pretty clear about that. You want shower. Yes, then what do you need to do?
What do you need to do to get your shower?
Use a quiet voice.
Use a quiet voice
Use nice hands.
and use nice hands.
One shower.
Okay,
It's not
then
gonna
we need
catch
to
up
go
if she
shopping
changes.
first.
Okay.
Shopping is first.
Do you guys hear
Can we
that?
go shopping first? Oh,
Gonna
we can?
listen
Okay.
along here.
Alright. Here, what do you wanting?
Wait till it's finished.
And then we'll be able to get back on track with the next video. Sorry guys, a little bit of technical difficulties.
Turn it up.
Turn what up?
Turn the music on.
Alright, then I'll stop filming. We're gonna go shopping and you'll earn your shower. What are we doing first?
Then take a shower.
First.
He skipped over that first. He
All
was
right,
trying.
Alright, so first, you're going to take a shower. Now, what's the deal, Leo? Are you gonna bite? Are you gonna yell?
No. No.
No. What are you gonna do?
No.
What are you gonna do? You're going to what?
I can communicate.
You're gonna communicate with me.
I have you.
No, you didn't hit me
I
yet.
have
No. Alright, so,
Yeah.
are you ready to go shopping?
you.
Look at me. Go shopping? Alright, so listen. What do you have to do to get your shower when we go home?
One shower.
You have to.
Use a quiet voice.
Yes, and?
Use nice hands.
Okay, do it. No, use your words.
Then take a shower.
What do you have to do first?
Go shopping.
Right.
So he set up on his board
Alright.
just a simple
Yeah, but what do we do?
first, then,
No,
so
what do
we
you
could
do
press
first?
the first shopping, then shower, and there was something
First.
else
First,
there for him at that moment.
Go shopping. Alright, you know the deal. Did you do a good job at the store?
yes.
Okay, did you bite?
No.
Did you yell?
No.
What did you do that was great?
I can communicate.
You did communicate. So, since you did all of that, you have it on here that you can do that. Yep, you do. What do you get to go do now?
Go shower.
You get to go shower. High five. Well done.
No, no.
Alright. Meet your grip.
So this is a mom. I can't remember if I said that at the beginning, but she's clearly worked very hard with her child, and there's a lot of learning, teaching and learning that has gone into the use of that device. But you can see that she's really taught him those functional communication skills to express what he wants, and then she's putting in that contingency. First, we're going shopping, and you're going to engage in all these target behaviors for increase, and then you're going to get that tangible item that
Back
you
on
want,
track,
which is the shower. So,
We said this back in.
okay. So yeah, if you do a Google search, his name is Creed, and the mom has like hundreds of videos online on YouTube, and they are fabulous. It's a really great resource that we stumbled upon. Okay. Yeah. go
This
ahead.
is one of my favorite videos.
Yeah, this video is fabulous. So we're gonna talk quickly about behaviors maintained by attention. So things that you want, yes, things that you should do when you have behaviors that are maintained by attention. Teach appropriate replacement behavior. So teach the child appropriate ways to gain your attention.
That's not just asking for attention or saying excuse me. For those of you that have chatted with me, if you've got little kids who are having a hard time with social skills, that's where your teaching is, right? If I'm trying to access attention and I don't know how to make friends, guess what? If you're my only friend, you will become the only source of attention I have. So the replacement behavior around that should be around playing, teaching kids how to successfully engage with one another, not just saying excuse me or asking for attention. Although that could be part of it.
You want to provide attention for any positive behaviors that you see. Again, looping back to what we talked about earlier. The second the student walks off the bus with a smile on his or her face, great job, you came to school today, nice walking off the bus, like just something as basic as that. Catch them doing anything good. Redirect the student back to the original demand. Again, you're ignoring the behavior, not the child, and we have a video with a great example of this. Do not provide attention for the behavior, and do not ignore the student, ignore the behavior. So again, you're not pretending like the kid isn't there, you're just pretending like they are engaging in that behavior that you don't want to see. Okay, this video, oh, sorry. Okay, so this video is
Trying to
another,
avoid the feedback.
is a video of, a child in a Boston public school classroom. She's in an inclusion classroom. And it's awesome.
This is an inclusion classroom in BPS. Never say, I'm screaming. The other kids are doing a great job of keeping going, doing their thing. Got some ear plugging strategies going on.
She's saying, I'm screaming, just redirecting her back to whatever.
And I love the kid in the front, who's like, okay, turning the page, reading my book.
But again, no one in the class is engaging because the teachers have taught them to continue doing what's expected, even when someone else is being unexpected.
Okay, so, let me just check.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good, good. Yep, just planned ignoring. So she's doing that. She's not accessing any of her reinforcement contingencies that might be in place for her. They're ignoring the behavior. She's still required to engage in, whatever task it is that everybody else is engaging in, but there's no attention being provided to that behavior. And the second she gets back on task, or the second she has a quiet voice, nice quiet voice, whatever it is that's motivating to her.
Thank you for asking me appropriately for help.
Yeah. What was
That
the
was a
question?
valid question.
Well, let's it really depends on the kid. I mean, it might be a lot. It might be a long time. I don't know this student.
Waited for an hour.
Yep.
And he kept doing it, like he wouldn't stop, and she counted like an hour.
Yep, and you might get what's called an extinction burst, which actually is an increase in the behavior, but it tells you what you're doing is actually working. So a lot of times what you might see is a child like that is screaming, 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 you're ignoring, and then all of a sudden they start tipping over chairs, and they start to up the ante. And sometimes children will engage in behaviors that are actually dangerous to other kids around them, and that's where you kind of need an additional plan and start thinking about what do you do if they start to up the ante.
So I think the take home from that is that if you're planning to do an extinction procedure, be ready. Okay, so know your student well and expect to see a different type of behavior come out. Right? If the behavior is like leaving the classroom, the behavior might become leaving the school building. Right? If the behavior is calling out, behavior could become aggression or property destruction, swearing. But you could see an escalation. You very likely will see an escalation.
And the way you keep
want
that,
to be ready for it if you're going to implement something.
and the way you keep that escalation smaller is by using those antecedent interventions and making sure they're getting lots and lots and lots of whatever they're seeking with that behavior in other ways without engaging in the behavior. Oh, no. Safety
Question was
trumps
about
behavior
seeing people in the
analysis every
classroom.
single day. We keep kids safe first, then we figure out how we're going to plan for their behavior. So you're going to monitor that child and keep them safe while minimizing how much attention you're providing, but first keep the child safe.
So what point are we going to say, okay, this child's behavior is consistently taking away from education?
Mhm.
What point do I say I need to become more aggressive in what I do? Ramifications,
So that's when you would reach out to our department.
Yep, and I also think, the other thing, one of the huge takeaways that we want you guys to leave with today are those antecedent strategies. So really thinking about how can you, as the educator and your colleagues who work with that child, change what you're doing before the behavior even occurs to prevent it from happening. And then thinking about, like Zach said, if all of that doesn't work, that's where you want to reach out for additional support.
They know exactly how to find those things that are difficult to ignore.
Okay, So lastly, we're going to talk quickly about automatic reinforcement. This is a very, very, very tricky function because a lot of times it's really hard to find anything that can compete with things that are automatically, stimulating to a child. What we want to do is think about appropriate functionally equivalent replacement behaviors. So find something more appropriate and safe that provides the same sensation. I had a guy in an inclusion classroom a couple years ago who was, very social with his peers, socially accepted by them, but he engaged in pretty intense flapping behavior. So he would, flap his hands, and he was socially aware enough to know that his peers thought that was weird. So what we taught him to do was clench his fist like this. And I really wish we had a video of it because he went from, pretty dramatic flapping to just clenching his fist. Luckily, as I said, he was very socially aware, so he knew that it made him stand out from his peers, so it was easier to teach him that. But, that's what we want to do is think about something that is functionally equivalent, that provides the same sensation to the child that we can teach them to engage in. Do not block the behavior. The child is engaging in the behavior for a reason, and they need that, that input. So, do not block it. We can teach them an appropriate time to engage in the behavior if we can't come up with a functionally equivalent appropriate replacement, but don't just block it, and don't time the child out. Again, that's not an appropriate response to an automatic reinforcement. Okay. Oh.
We're gonna see Creed again.
Throw it. Okay. Here's my friend again. This is the same guy who we go with the communication. He engages in throwing behaviors in the house. We are going to assume are maintained by automatic.
Yeah. So the behavior we're seeing here is throwing, and he was doing a lot of throwing in the house, dropping things over the stairwell and things like that. And the hypothesized function is that it's automatically maintained. He just likes the sensation of throwing. Wasn't for attention.
Okay. There we go. Nope. If you want to throw stuff, it's not from the top of the stairs. It's right here. Yeah. No, pick it up and throw it. You can't throw in the house, but you can throw outside. Throw it. Yeah. Good job, buddy. Keep going.
So same kind of motion,
There you go.
presumably same kind of sensation he's getting, but
So
this
this
is
is
an
how you play with
appropriate
dogs,
way to
not
do that
throwing
throwing.
your
Play with the
stuff in your
dogs
room.
outside, nothing can break, those kinds of things.
Okay. Look at me. Great. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and throw some stuff. Throw it to the dogs. Throw as much as you want. There you go. Well, don't throw in the house. If you're gonna throw, you're gonna throw. There you go. So if you want to throw and feed them, you can feed them outside. Much better. Much more control. Much better. There you go. Some for you, some for them.
This part is going to be funny.
Sounds good. Yep. Go for
Wait
it.
for it. So this is sort of tied into the throwing.
Go ahead.
But it's a little bit more like dumping. That he can hand them off to the dogs, drop them on the ground for the dogs, or just
Really, you're gonna
give
get
them all the food.
This is a lot of work. She put a lot of work into this kid, and a lot of time and effort, but it really pays off. Like he, you can see that he has a lot of skills that he would not have if she hadn't put this effort into it. And the same goes for your classroom. If you invest the time and the effort on the front end, you're not going to be putting all that time and effort into dealing with problem behaviors and tantrums and all that. So we did have scheduled here a 10-minute breakout for you guys to work on this. As part of your homework, because it is 6:30 or 2 minutes before,
part of your homework for the next class is to draft your full behavior support plan. So that'll be included here. Very, very quickly, we talked a little bit about safety and making sure that, safety always trumps any kind of behavior analysis. There is a portion on the behavior support plan regarding a safety plan. Safety always is your top priority. If you have a child who needs a safety plan, this is something that needs to be developed in collaboration with your building leaders and families. All right. Any questions in our last minute and a half?
All right, guys, any other questions? We are wrapping it up.
Yep.
Okay, so your homework is currently up on the screen. Take a look. It will also be on the
Yeah, so the homework will go in the
And
Google
how about a round of
Classroom.
applause for Kylie for keeping us on time?
All right, Kylie. Good job, team.
Like, what is she waving at me? All right.
This was our homework. Don't worry too much about that slide. Any last questions?
No, they have to do the homework too.
No. The last slide is the printing slide.
Oh.
Go back to that. There we go. Thank you very much. So again, if you have any other questions, check in with the Google Classroom. The homework assignment is there. We will be creating a folder of some samples and documents and things like that. We have some links to some of those other trainings we were talking about. We'll get all of that happening on the Google Classroom. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Take your speakers. What do you have? Oh, yeah.
Bye.